We are going to have the next 1 hour focus on analytics. A couple of important speakers. Andrew Norwood, Director of Digital Learning at Trinity College. And then we have Paul Lister, Director of ICT and Facility Services at the Scots College. Questions at the end, please. So up to you, Andrew.
Thanks, everybody. So just a bit about me. My role is Director of Digital Learning at Trinity College. I pitch myself as the bridge between the IT and the pedagogy. Another role is Head of Digital Technologies Faculty. It's quite a large organisation. We were the largest school in South Australia, in the Southern Hemisphere, until someone in Victoria beat us. But I'm not quite sure who that was. But there are 5 campuses and a Montessori preschool, about 3,800 students. So it's a significant amount of students, and reflecting with a colleague, I think there's about 10,000 users in our Schoolbox instance. So one of my passions is actually looking at data and looking at learning analytics. And although Schoolbox provides some really nice functionality in terms of being able to look at student progress within courses and rubric analysis, when you actually start to think about Schoolbox as a database and the big data set that it's providing you, you start to think, well, what can I pull out of that, and what information can I get from that, and how can I start to do things slightly differently with data to be able to make some informed decisions that are going to impact on student learning. So I want to give you a bit of a use case today that we've sort of been journeying with, and hopefully this will spark a thought for you about how you can use the data within Schoolbox to your advantage and and customize it to how you want it to look. So I'm going to focus on extracting rubric level data from assessments in Schoolbox. The rubric functionality in Schoolbox is fantastic, and I think rubrics can be used in all sorts of different ways, not only with the sort of academic data, but we're really interested in looking at those softer skills and how do we start to measure some of those attributes, and we call them graduate qualities that we want our students to develop. I joined the organisation a couple of years ago, and one of the first things I was asked to do was an effort report. And the effort report had a few sort of objectives: to provide rich feedback to students and parents about students' ownership of learning. And we wanted to be able to analyse the data efficiently to identify key areas for intervention. The issue was the effort report looked like that. So there's not a great deal of analytics you can pull from that kind of report. And it was great for me because Synergetic provides the functionality to fill in a column all with the same value. So I went for good and then went through and picked my outstandings and my slightly less goods. But there was no sort of real insight into why we were judging students like this. So what I then discovered was the college had done quite a lot of work on what good looked like and what outstanding looked like in terms of ownership of learning. And I was provided with this rubric, this helpful rubric to guide my decisions. Very small here, but just zoom into some parts of it. Now we'll talk about the conversation that's been posed about this rubric. Now we're using it in a slightly different way, but I was asked to use this rubric to guide my judgment of these students in terms of their effort and their ownership of learning. And it was suggested to me that I actually highlight where I'm placing these on, because I could then use that as a tool for a conversation with the student, which is actually quite powerful, to be able to sit down with a student and talk about why you've got good and how do I get to outstanding. So it was a really useful tool, and it was one that should have been used by all teachers across the college to provide these effort reports. I was not completely confident that that was the case, that was occurring. So I thought, well, actually, how can we use the Schoolbox functionality to be able to do this slightly differently? Just a zoomed-in version there of some of the attributes. So I thought, well, why don't we have an effort course? Why don't we have an effort course for each school? Our schools are South, North, Blakeview, Gawler River, and Senior. So we'll have separate courses because we can actually pull out the analytics per school that way. And I'll create this rubric in Schoolbox. The beauty of this is we can control this centrally. So I could create the course as a Schoolbox admin, and I could push it out to all of the class pages across the college. Bit of copy and pasting with the class codes at this stage, but I'm hopeful that you can just paste them all at once very soon. But it was possible to push this out to all of the class pages across the college, and we then asked the teachers, including myself, to mark the effort on the rubric, and the effort grade would be calculated automatically using this. And you can imagine I wasn't too popular because this rubric has 12 rows, and when you've got, 30 students and 4 Year 7 classes, that's a lot of clicks. From my perspective, it was fantastic because we were getting 88,000 rows of data every time we ran this rubric, which was just amazing. So there were basically 88,000 clicks going on, 88,000 boxes being selected for every report. And the heads of school really loved the idea because you can then actually see this, and we can publish this to the students, and we could potentially publish it to the parents, and we could actually really have some useful data around this. This actually opened up a conversation about, well, what are we valuing here? How are we looking at effort? How are we creating this rubric in the first place? Is it sustainable? Is it manageable? And we've actually entered into a set of research around these graduate qualities now to distill this rubric down, and it's really started an interesting conversation about how we can assess and monitor those softer skills and those dispositions that we want our students to develop. What I wanted to do is to be able to look at the data in a meaningful way across the whole college. So these 88,000 rows of data, one for each click, I wanted to be able to model that. And the great thing about Schoolbox is, yes, it has some great analytics built within the system, but Schoolbox are also willing to give schools read access to their database. And that's really powerful, and it's very safe because you can't trash anything, it's just read, but you can query the data and you can get what you want out of the database. So I thought, well, how can I pull this rubric level data out of the database so that I can actually model it and start to answer some questions that we may have about the results. So this is on Schoolbox Help. Now, this is the whole assessment part of the database. Schoolbox Help, they provide you with the schema, and although it looks like a bit of a hodgepodge of tables, once you actually look at it, it's really clear on how the database is structured, and the rubric section is up to the top right there. So I thought, well, surely I can work this out. Surely I can do this. So there's the rubric section zoomed in. But they give you all this information. They show you how the tables are connected. They show you how the information is all related. It's all there. And you can then go and you can start to write some queries. So this is a query that I wrote, and I wrote it as a generic query, and I'm happy to share this SQL code. I was actually speaking to another teacher earlier, and we thought, who was also in this space, and we thought, we probably need to start sharing these things that we're doing, because I'm sure there are a few people in this space around the room. It was a dark moment the other day when I ran this query in preparation for this session and realized the schema had changed and it broke. So I was slightly petrified, but it was only a slight tweak to get it working again. This query will pull out the rubric level data for any assessment based on the assessment's title and the course specification ID. Okay, so you just specify that at the top in a variable, and it will pull that out. So this is doing middle school effort week 25, so this one was from last year. And then I used Power BI, which is the business intelligence tool from Microsoft, to model this data and to map how many results we'd got. This example's year 10. So I wanted to show you how we can use that, and that's what I'm going to do here. So this is just year 8. I'll zoom in just to start with. So this is every possible descriptor in the rubric and how many times it was actually assigned across the entire college for that particular effort report. Now, very difficult to read in that view, but what I did is I put some slicers on the report so we can actually look at this by indicator. Okay, so an interesting one is student always listens carefully. Okay? Now, this is just for year 8. This is across the entire college. This is 5 schools worth of data. And I would question the fact that only 17 of our students do not, well, 17 times our students were told that they don't listen carefully. So this is, sparked some interesting conversations. But what I like about this is it's not someone going away and making a spreadsheet and saying, this is what it looks like, which is what we do for a lot of our assessments. Our college has college-wide tests. Those college-wide tests provide how many A's, how many B's they get at each school. Admin produce some fancy charts that go to the board, and they say, oh, brilliant. But there's no, data should be able to answer questions. It should be the starting point for a conversation. And having data in this kind of format where you can sort of say, well, why is that happening? And you can drill down on many different levels because you can pull out, okay, we can do it by school, we can do it by class, we can even do it by teacher, which is an interesting self-reflection tool. Here's me. Okay, so what I found looking at this data was there's an area on here around group work. Oh, selected multiple. So I found that I was never giving the top grade for group work. Okay, I only gave student is an enthusiastic and highly effective group participant and leader once across the entirety of my year 8 reports. And I taught 4 year 8 classes, and I thought, wow, is that, maybe I need to reflect on my group work and how I'm actually teaching explicitly students to work in groups, because if this is something either I'm subconsciously not seeing or I'm not making it visible enough, maybe this is something I actually need to work on. So I've just shared this with heads of teaching and learning at this stage, but the plan would be to actually embed this. We use Microsoft Teams. There's the possibility to embed BI reports in Microsoft Teams. I think it would be great for teachers to have this as a tool so they can self-reflect. Obviously, we need to think about the row-level access. We wouldn't give access to everybody's data, but what a great way to actually drill down. You can do it by student. So a head of teaching and learning can now sit down with a student. They can bring up the student's effort report, and the student may think, well, this teacher doesn't like me, that's why they gave me that grade. But you can say, well, there's actually a pattern here. If we look at this, where do you need to work on? What do you need to do to move that good to that outstanding? We're now coupling this with self-reflection, so we're asking the students to self-reflect, which is another amazing feature of rubrics in Schoolbox. Students are able to self-reflect, so you can map what the teacher's giving as opposed to what the student's giving. There's so many possibilities around what you can do with this. We're looking at doing this with the college-wide tests, so we can actually look, we do a college-wide test on English. Again, before we just did how many A's, B's, C's they got. Now we're actually going to be pulling out the rubric level information and looking at where there are deficiencies and where we can plan those intervention strategies to improve student outcomes. It wasn't a specialist area for me trying to query this database at the beginning. It was something that I could see could happen, and I sort of worked through it to work out how the tables were connected and such. So it's not overly onerous, and there may be people in your schools that are particularly interested in this and able to do SQL querying really well. Usually your SIS managers and things like that would be able to do that. So it's perfectly possible to pull out some really interesting analytics without a significant cost implication. I think the professional version of Power BI, which you need to be able to actually create the reports, is about $12 a month, something like that. We only give that to the heads of teaching and learning and me, so that I can create the dashboards. But my idea is that I will create dashboards. I will provide those dashboards to heads of teaching and learning. We may have one in the pastoral space that I provide to HPCs. And they're able to use those dashboards to answer the questions that they have. I'm even sort of looking into the possibility of trying to embed this into the Schoolbox portals. So the students will actually be able to log onto their portal and look at their attendance data, for example. So you can get that self-regulation going on. I fully believe that that's possible, and Schoolbox is structured in such a way that it makes this possible for us to do. So just a couple of screenshots of going through the data. Oh. Oops. So just looking at different year levels. So the next steps, we are going to redevelop our rubric to make it more fit for purpose and also less onerous on teachers, and more reflective of the graduate qualities that we want our students to be developing. And we're also moving it into the college-wide test. That's our next step as well. So I hope this is giving you some food for thought, and I'd like to ask if there's any questions. Yep.
Thanks, Andrew, for your presentation. How many times in the term or the semester do teachers populate that rubric? Is it summative at the end, or is there a chance to see some kind of progression? Is that your intention?
It's actually every 5 weeks. Because of the how onerous it was, when we changed from just doing you put good, outstanding, and just look at the rubric to actually saying, well, this is where they sit on the rubric, it was clear that the rubric was too onerous. But we do effort reports every 5 weeks. So it does give you the opportunity to do that longitudinal data as well. I haven't done that yet. We've got our first one for this year coming up on Friday, and I will build up the data set so that we can model the whole year and look at the progression of that. There's certainly that opportunity, yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Again, on behalf of Schoolbox, thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Very nice. Now we have Paul Lister, Director of ICT and Facility Services at the Scots College.
Thanks, Roberto. Thanks for the last presentation too. It's interesting. Wait a second. Roberto, clicking it, it's not coming. Oh, there you go. Okay. So that's me. I'm the Director of IT and Services at Scots. There's our school, 6 campuses, about 2,000 students, 250 boarders. We're in Bellevue Hill. That's Schoolbox at Scots. So we've had it for 4 years, and I don't know if they're in the room, but James, Sean and Matt and Ellen, thank you. It's a great product. They're a great partner for us at Scots. We're really happy we went with Schoolbox. So we've had it for 4 years. I'd have to say we started off well. We got under-resourced at a certain point about a year and a half ago, which slowed us down, but we finally got back on board. So it's our portal. All the comms go through there. So this is my login. I've got a couple of boys there. So our main, we had an issue about 18 months ago or 2 years ago. We're migrating student management systems from Edumate through to Synergetic. Forgotten all about that now. And one of the key things we left at the end was the reporting for the parents and the students. So our parents really liked in the previous student management system our box and whisker graphs for how their son was travelling with the cohort, where they stood, and drilling down those details. So we phoned up James. So Synergetic couldn't do it for us. Literato couldn't do it because they're a partner as well. I rang James and he said, no, we don't do that, which is fine. A no is not bad. I'm good with a no. So we went and spoke to a company that we knew of called AYRA. They're out there today, AYRA, and said, we're in a bind. We need to deliver this. It's probably, what was it, probably October. We need to deliver this by the start of term 1 the following year, so pretty much in a bind. So we needed to replicate that reporting interface, especially for our senior school, 7 to 12. So they did, and so firstly, for my 2 boys there, you can see the due work. So if you're Tom in year 10, I think he is now, he can see his assessments coming up. If you click on results, which is where it changes, that's his results. I've gone back to last year, 2017, so you can go back in time, which is great. Up the top left, you've got the EPA, so we do that 4 times a year. I think we're doing it now for term 1 because all the moanings from the teachers has risen in the last week or 2, so they've got to enter all that data. The criteria for that's pretty simple. It's not too complicated. So when you click on that 3.4 button, it drills down and shows the history of the EPA, so you can see how you're travelling term for term. So the student can see that, mum and dad can see that. What's that next one? I can't see it. Yeah, grade point, sorry, GPA. So GPA's there, ditto. You click on that, you can see the historical grade point average. The mind, body and heart button in the middle is we've got a sports program which is reasonably well developed. So if you click on that, the students they get tested once a term from year 7 to 12. Once a term on about 9 different physical things like speed, power, strength, flexibility, grit, and all those type of things. So they get measured on that data, and we're going to roll out to year 5 and 6, I think, later in the year. But the bottom line with that, the boys can get in there and see the results and go, I want to be faster or stronger, and they can set a goal. So they can click on their result, put a goal in, or want to be able to bench or get stronger at this or faster, and then it pops up a calendar where they can just drag and showing the week and the availability in the gym, and they can jump in there and say, okay, I want to do an extra speed session or a weight session or something like that. So the idea there is to get the boys owning the outcomes, or getting some ownership around their outcomes for sport. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. So they've got their disciplines, their awards and their absences there. The next bit is really, I guess, as a parent, where I'm interested in seeing he's had a shocker in maths there, term 3 last year. No, 2 years ago, is it? Yeah. So he's had a shocker in maths, so I can look at that and have a conversation with him. His little red dot there. I spoke to his maths teacher, I spoke to the head of maths, I spoke to his tutor, and the bottom line is it's not his fault. He's genetically got a problem with maths from his parents. So anyway, the good thing about this is that we've got a structure at Scots where we've got 6-year coordinators for the 6th grade, 7 to 12. We've got 12 houses who get to see this data, and we've got 72 tutors. The boys from 7 to 10 meet the tutors twice a week for about 30, 40 minutes, and their role, those tutors, is to go through this sort of information, and also they get a daily automated report that comes up on all the boys they look after and says, here's their awards for the day, here's their disciplines or merits and demerits, here's some notes, pastoral notes as well, so they get notes about the student so they can have that conversation with the boy twice a week. In the senior school from 11 to 12, I think it's 3 times a week they do it. But they're the key, the tutor's the key at Scots for initiating that conversation about how they're tracking and they're using this data which is coming through. So you can drill down and click on the subject there and you get more results, like, 20 out of 50 or something like that, and some more metrics. So that's our box and whisker. And below that, there's all historical reports, end of semester, term reports that you can see, download, print and view for the parents. So all on one page, our parents and our students can access that and see it. So Mind, Body and Heart, which is our second part of our getting into the use of data and collection of data. So this has taken about 12 months to get together, but same company, ARA, developed that with our sports department. I dragged into this conversation as well. I herded some cats. I've heard that term today, but anything to do with data and big schools, it tends to be challenging to get people together. I brought curriculum people in, pastoral people, and co-curricular people in because I wanted to make sure that they're working with sports to get a solution that we can bring across to the academic side. So sport at the moment is pioneering this and working out the process, and the other 2 or 3 strands, academic, pastoral and co-curricular, are staying in tune and inputting in that as well. Long story short, Tom there is going downhill in some things. Doesn't look too good, does it? And he can click on one of those buttons and go, okay, I want to set a goal for the next term, and up pops a calendar like this, and on the left you can see there it gets a bit more down lower. He can drag it across and pick up a session to do it. So we want them to get used to doing this. They do it 4 times a year. We're just about to open this up to other schools as well, some around Australia and some overseas, who want to come in and do the same thing and work with this on using this data. But the ultimate aim here, I guess, is for the boys to start driving their learning and the outcomes of whatever they're doing at school. And ultimately where we want to go is to have a profile on a boy. All this data should be able to input into a single profile that principal, HODs, key staff, tutor can see around their students and really get to know them well. So that's our Mind, Body and Heart program. And there you go. So you can drag stuff across and book it in and turn up. I use that gym, and I was in there. I missed my evening session once. I went in the next day at about 7:30, and there must have been about 60 kids in there doing their session. So it's really well used. So that same concept, but we want to use for academics and co-curricular. The next area we're just starting to get into is operational dashboards. So we realised that things like your normal end of semester marks for assessments, that data is pretty easy to get, and it's the core. But we've got all these other sets of data in the place that we need to access. We've got NAPLAN, all Prowse, Pat Maths, everything. You've got so many different bits of data. And we've also got a lot of non-academic data that can impact on the boys' outcomes as well. So we've just started using the same system to devise operational reports for all the different departments in the college. So not academic and non-academic reports. So we've got to go on a mission now to hunt down all that data because it's everywhere. It's like a gold mine. You just got to go and find the gold nuggets. So I've got an IT systems analyst, and I hired him specifically to lead this, and his job is to basically be the person who takes the pressure off our DBA, who goes out and interfaces with all the key departments, finds out firstly defines exactly what data is important for them, what do they need that's going to have an impact on the students or help them, and then once they've defined that and he's documented that, he brings it back and we build the templates, or we're starting to build the templates now to do these operational reports. So they will be available as well within Schoolbox, so virtually with 1 or 2 clicks. We're hoping within Schoolbox, our key staff in all our different departments can see operational reports, the Mind, Body and Heart results for a student, and also their academic, the first dashboard you saw there. so they can have a conversation and hopefully an intervention if it's required. The key to all this is the pastoral for us. So I don't know what it's like at your school. We've got about 4 or 5 psychologists. I never believe I'd work at a school with that many psychologists, but we do. So a lot of the data that they have is all on paper. And sometimes they don't always put it into the student management system synergetic. So we've realised we've got these different pockets at the school. We've got to grab the data and bring out and get it into either here, or either into synergetic, or into at least a CSV file, or hopefully Google spreadsheet, so we can pull it through into this system. So that's our challenge at the moment. So the data side, what this has done for us is really shone a light on how we need to improve the input of data, defining exactly what we need, because to be honest with you, we don't have enough IT staff to run around and find all this stuff. We just don't. So we can waste a lot of time and money and resources trying to get this stuff. So we really want to have a conversation with the key leaders about what's really important data that can really make an impact and a change for students. And then we've got to go and find that data, and then we've got to display it so they can have those conversations. So that's the challenge. It's not easy. In a nutshell, that's where we're at. And it's all within the ecosystem of Schoolbox, which we're happy about. We don't have multiple systems to use. So, yeah, that's it. Questions?
Thank you. I just had one question. Did ARA design those dashboards and queries to... Just over here, sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Did ARA design those dashboards and queries that were run to extract the data, or was that designed by you and you liaised with them as a product?
It's co-designed. We basically worked out what we had from the previous system and said, listen, you need to make this, and quick. And they did. And, yeah, so the results basically... the delivery's the same, it's better, looks better. When you hover over some of those things, it tells you information. They're static shots, so you can't see it here. But, you know, in a matter of 3 months, they nailed that, which was great. And now we're just about to bring the prep side of the school in. They've only taken 18 months to come to the party, but they're finally there, I think. So we're almost there to get them up and board. And, yeah, basically in one spot, as a dad, I can get all the information I need there to have the conversations I need to have. Yeah.
Thanks.
You mentioned that you were using Literado. Is this taken over from Literado, or are you still using both systems? Or
so, I don't know what your school's like, but in our school there's so many, I guess the word silos, yeah, pockets of different things happening, and you try and keep your ear open to hear what's happening. So yeah, we're a partner with Literado. We've got their NAPLAN Explorer solution. It is used to a degree. But this is, you know, Schoolbox for us is the one-stop shop for everything, for our staff, students and parents, so it's all in here. Yeah, that is used, and it's pretty impressive, some aspects of it. I like quite a few of the things in there, but as the core delivery interface for our staff, students and parents, this is it. And that's really just for NAPLAN data at this point. But in saying that, we could pull through NAPLAN to this, you know, in our operational reports, plus a whole lot of others, pending time and resources.
I'm really interested in the student agency that you've provided there for your kids to actually take control of their learning. But I'm wondering how you've developed, I mean, it seems you've been doing this for a while in terms of the box and whisker type comparison and comparative data. How have you built that culture in your school? And do you find that you have students who struggle with seeing this data like this? Does it create any anxiety for any kids?
Yeah, look, I've heard that. I don't own that space and that decision about what happens in that. I'm mainly the guy who makes things happen and executes stuff and put things together. But yeah, that conversation's in the school, and it's still there, that conversation. As a parent, I like seeing it. I want to know. You need to know where you stand as far as I'm concerned. So, but yeah, there is a. I think there's some students where they may specifically remove We've requested removing that just for some students who've got anxiety, as you say, anxiety, and there seems to be quite a few, but generally across the board we don't. Across the board we don't. An area we're interested in now, or going forward, is more just formative polling of students, like how you doing today, how you travelling, thumbs up, sideways, down, whatever. So we're just thinking of ways we can do that. I met Lior, who runs Vivi, I don't know, before Christmas. He's an interesting guy. So he's trying to do stuff that with the Vivi product, which I really liked. You know, so a teacher using Vivi in the classroom, I don't know if it's been put out there, can, the kids can sit there and go, I'm bored, press a button. Or, who has? Okay, I've seen the stills, I haven't seen the reel, but I think we're trying to head towards that to get a good feel on how the kids are feeling, but we don't want to overpoll them. We just want to, it can become invasive too, to a degree, so that conversation's got to be had. I think we've got enough, as both the director of IT and as a dad. There's enough there for me, at least, to see how my kids are travelling and work out if we've got to do something. When we investigated his maths issues, wasn't his mum, genetically, he's a computer programmer. My son is in year 10, but we found out he nailed all the worksheets, gets everything conceptually, but his exam execution is really poor in maths for some reason, so we had to work on that. So that was the intervention there. So at the moment, yeah, that's where you can go back in time and check things out, and it's not easy, it's hard, getting people together, getting decisions. Yeah. What's it like in your school?
Really?
What's the hardest part? Yeah. Yeah, getting to a decision. So we're multi-campus too, and what I try to do in those multi-campuses is find a champion campus that wants to go ahead and try something and let them run with it and use them as the pilot. We just opened up a new prep school at Brighton in Cogra, just in Sydney, and about 60 kids there. So we use them a little bit to pilot stuff, which is good. They're T to 4 at the moment, T to 6, but just getting a decision and moving stuff and trying stuff. I think parents are forgiving if they know you're trying to improve the outcome for their kids. So, yeah. What's the biggest issue at schools in this space? Resources, yeah, without a doubt. We struggle with that. Like Cameron over there is looking fatigued, runs Schoolbox for us, and he's also in boarding, teaches, 0.6 teaching, under-resourced for about a year and a half. We had to use 2 interns, not use, but we had 2 interns help us to get Schoolbox up and running, to finish it off. So the resourcing side's really hard. To be honest, I find the biggest challenge for me is getting the key curriculum people together to make a decision and define philosophically what do they want. That's what I find challenging the most. And then you've got your different departments who hide data. Some people, I don't know what it is about admissions, but they seem to hide data in spreadsheets and don't use the system. I hope there's no admissions ladies here today. But so you've got all these departments that do different stuff with data and getting it into one system. So what we're happy about, we basically got the one system hooked into, integrated into Schoolbox that does these 3 things for us. And that's good. I don't have to go and buy another system or integrate another system. Got a pretty good relationship with Schoolbox as well, I think. So, yeah. That. Yeah, they see that. So when he sees maths, he sees he's having a shocker. Yeah. So he avoided me for about, I asked him, I said, how do you go on your maths, mate? He avoided me for about 3 or 4 weeks. I knew what the result was. And I dragged him in the room, have a chat to him. But just having the data there, what you're trying to do at your school is good. So it's framed there. We partner with Digistorm so the parents can get through to that, see it. It's just now a matter of building the data.
And
100%.
it's there in black and white.
Yeah, and that's the key for us. It's relational. you know, I get it with my kids too. When I look at the results in the year for my sons, whoever they have the best relationship, they seem to get the best results from in the teaching front. So, yeah, so we want this spot to be where all the information comes. Our next goal will be to work with counselling and a couple of other departments to digitise their data and inputs, even if we have to get someone to input it and they can't or they don't have time, to digitise it and then train them so that we've got that feeding as well without overloading the teacher. Because these tutors are only, 72 tutors, we only got about, 2 half-an-hour sessions a week for our boys 7 to 10, 3 for 11 to 12 per week. So it's not much time, and they've got to hone in on the ones who really need the help. Yeah. Yeah, you always get that. I've been pleasantly surprised. We've got some green culture, for want of a better word, or ballast, who don't want to move and like the old way. But I'm happily surprised that, especially with the help of Cameron and his little team, that's brought it up to speed, train them. They're getting better and better, and it's great when you get the ones who you think are Luddites. Probably shouldn't say that, should I? But the ones, who come up to you and say, you know what, I just discovered this little thing on my class page and I love it. That's unreal. That makes my day. Makes all those horrible meetings worthwhile. You know what I mean? Yeah, so, I think just keep chipping away, trying to get some resources assigned. That's the biggest challenge. And, it's a really good program, Schoolbox. I like it. We don't use the rubric. We don't use some aspects of it. Mainly for us, it's our portal. We use it for comms, portal, and the LMS component. And we snap in a couple of key third-party. Yeah.
With your tutor sessions, is it a one-on-one or is it?
Nah,
Just
it's
ask your question through the mic.
1 to, what is it, 1 to 20, mate? 1 to
12.
1 to 12. There you go. 1 to 12, just enough. Pretty much the right size. 1 to 11 would have been perfect for a venue like this, mate. Yeah. MCG. Cricket. Yeah. Say that again?
Are you using any data about the amount of work your department's doing to try and increase the
Yeah, I've started a spreadsheet and that, and I'm compiling something separate. But what we will do, and we're talking about it in the cab, come from the airport this morning, we want to use our, this system, which is it's the octopus system that they've just sent out, emails about, to, all the page hits, how many parents are looking at what, to combine that together to make a case to get more resources. Like we actually got 8 campuses when you look at it. We've got 2,000 students, we've got to look after all those spaces, and at one point we had about 8 IT staff to manage all that. 3,500 devices, you just can't do it, and you just can't stay on top of, we've got over 100 systems and core pieces of software. We just mapped it, we finished mapping it this week. And I'm sure some of your schools are like that as well, so it's bloody hard. You need to fight for that and keep it. So, do you do anything in that space?
We're just starting to.
Yeah, because the accountants don't seem to quite get it, I think, versus being counters. Probably shouldn't say that. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm here, this way. Keep going.
Sorry.
Good. Oh, we should do you're at 2 o'clock or something. I'm interested, we're all on this journey, obviously, that's why we're here. Why do it? Why has it been worth it? What are the critical things that have happened in your school as a consequence of all of this effort? Is it student improvement?
I'll give you an example, yeah. So, yes, that's the point, and that's kind of going back to the point I was making before. A lot of work and resources can go into getting all this data, finding it, putting it together and displaying it. You can waste a lot of money and time. If the intervention's not there, if those tutors aren't doing their job, so someone's got to be managing the tutors and making sure that's happening, and then they've got to do an intervention or a series of them to make sure they turn that student around, then if that doesn't happen, it's not worth it. No, but good point. Yeah, that's probably where we need to go to next. How can we measure our, the success of our interventions? We had a student who graduated about 5 years ago. He's now, I think, working for, who's the new MP for Double Bay? Karen Phelps. right? But he started at Scots in year 5, and he had some pretty serious learning challenges. But he spoke at our staff PD day with about, 500 or 600 staff at some point. When he graduated, the year after he graduated year 12, he come back and spoke. And it was unbelievable. The journey from year 5 for him and the challenges he had as he worked his way through Scots and all the interventions they had, both from the counselling, from the learning side and a couple other areas, to see him speak so beautifully and turn out to be such a good young man, it was just unreal. A lot of staff crying, listening to that because they knew him, they'd been on the journey with him. So, yeah, that makes it worth it. But we need more of those, and we need to measure, the success of that. And I think we should be measuring, are the interventions happening? The thresholds. What are the thresholds for a hard intervention, and what does it look like? Yeah. Is that it? Sorry? I wouldn't do it. Someone else would. Yeah. How would I do it? I'd make them complete something every time they intervened and defining what it is into some type of form. A quick, easy one might be just a click, blah, blah, bang, and that gets compiled and you track that. So if we can digitise, into numbers those comments or whatever, maybe on a small scale, then we can pull that through and display it and track it over time. So where we're going on the mind, body and heart journey here, starting with sport, moving into academic and using the pastoral later, is to track kids over time. So if they come in at transitional kindy, we can track them. We can look at the whole history of them, all their results, all the pastoral things that have happened to them, or interventions, how they're tracking in sports, everything for the whole kid. That's the ultimate. That might take another 10 years. I don't know. Anyway. Is that it? Thank you.